Great morning. Hey, this is Pastor Bob from Ascension Healing Fellowship, and this is our Sunday worship service for December 14th, 2025. I almost went back to 19 something. Wow. I wanted to jump on here kind of early this morning because I'm really excited about what we're talking about. I know I'm kind of like a kid at Christmas every Sunday morning, but really excited about that. Really excited to show you my ugly Christmas sweater and the message that's on there, which is just gift it. And today we're talking about the gift of the impossible and why the impossible is a gift and how that plays into our journey. So I want you to think about this quote while we do our meditation. And this quote is just real simple. Okay. A blessed soul will face the impossible on their journey. And an extremely blessed soul will face the impossible multiple times on their journey. And I'm going to share why in this message. But first, let's just get quiet and still for a moment. And as you breathe in, just think or say, all things are possible. As you breathe out through perfect love. Again, all things are possible. Through perfect love. Let's take a minute now. All things are possible through perfect love. That was a point that one person in our story kind of had to get to, that what a blessing that was. But she only got there because of an impossibility. So, first passage I want to read to you is Luke 1, verse 37. Luke 1, verse 37. This is what we were just talking about. For nothing will be impossible with perfect love. Nothing will be impossible with God. Nothing will be impossible with the divine, who is perfect love. Nothing will be impossible. Nothing will be impossible. And why is that so vitally important to understand? Then I want to read Luke 1 and verse 20. This is an angel talking to Zechariah. Remember, Zechariah had some issues, as we'll discuss a little bit later. And behold, you will be silent and unable to speak until the day that these things take place, because you did not believe any words which will be fulfilled in their time. Two very different responses to the impossible. Two very different responses to the impossible. You know, one of my favorite quotes that I'm reminded of today as we talk about the impossible is a quote by Albert Einstein, and it's attributed to a lot of different things, but let me just read this quote to you because this quote is beautiful. According to Albert Einstein, quote, it says, there are only two ways to look at life. One is though nothing is a miracle. There are no miracles. And the other is as if everything is a miracle. There are only two ways to look at life. One as if nothing is a miracle, and one as if everything is a miracle. Albert Einstein, one of the smartest men to ever live. So, why is the impossible a great present? Why did the impossible just get gifted to us? Why is it that you could be sitting in an impossible situation, I use quote marks there, an impossible situation right now and be blessed beyond your wildest imagination? That's what we're going to cover today. And the first reason why the impossible is such a great present is it grows faith. It grows faith. Faith I often say, is like a mushroom. It grows best in dark poop, okay? I'm trying to watch certain words. Faith is like a mushroom. It grows best when it's in dark crap. It just does. Darkness. I don't see the light, God. Why are you dumping all this crap on me? Because it's impossible. And that's the blessing. That's the blessing of the impossible. That's the reason why the perfect love is beyond human comprehension. Because when I can't see the love, when it's impossible all around me, when there's so much all around me, that's when the blessing is really, really there. Faith only grows when it has to. Let me state that again. Faith only grows when it absolutely has to. And that's why the impossible is your second Christmas present of all times. So let's look at some different impossibilities. One is a cultural impossibility. Joseph faced cultural impossibility, right? Well, I'm just going to quietly divorce her. Let me just get rid of her. No, Joseph, here's a secret to the impossibilities in your life. The way through is the way through. The way through is the way through. The way through is to rest. That this too is a gift to you. Because that rest, that's what faith is. Faith is resting in the impossibility of this moment, this present, this gift. And this has just been my personal experience. If you don't learn in this impossibility, the next impossibility will be this big. And your final impossibility will be the last exhale. So please learn the gift of the impossible back on this impossibility and just grow in faith. Cultural impossibility. Mary had a cultural impossibility, but Mary approached it very differently. Mary, as you just said, wow, okay, all things are possible. Let's go, God. We got this. We got this, perfect love. I know that you got this. You've got me wrapped right here in your arms. Wrapped right here in your arms. And that was such an amazing moment for me when I realized that years after my dad passed, this wonderful Buddhist monk taught me to see the divine embracing me and holding me and just rocking me back and forth. And that healed so much in me. My first silent retreat, I will never forget that. The shepherds faced cultural impossibilities, right? Wow, you're coming to us? Wait a minute. What? Angels? Have you guys been smoking something? I mean, you can imagine the conversation around the campfire. And we're going to talk about another impossibility that the shepherds faced. But they faced a cultural impossibility as well. Then there are physical impossibilities. Physical impossibilities. Wow. Well, who faced physical impossibilities? Well, Elizabeth. She was barren. But what did she say when she first got the word from the divine? She goes, oh, this is fantastic. I'm finally going to be rid of the cultural shame that accompanies being a barren woman. In that day, in that age, in that culture, if you didn't have children, you really weren't considered as valuable as the person who brought forth many children. Keep in mind, this was a farming community. It was a Bedouin community. It was a community based on the idea that you gave birth to have more labor force. But she approached it with praise, with glory, with excitement. She was so excited that she was going to bear a child at her advanced age. Then there was Zechariah, physical impossibility. And how did he approach it? With doubt, with skepticism, with negativity. He wouldn't believe. And for that, he was silenced until the event happened. I found in my personal journey, sometimes the best moments with the divine are when I can't even talk. Let me give you a hint. It's not about the talking. Sometimes it's just being there, just holding a hand, just embracing someone, just letting them know you're going to be there for them. You're not going to let them go. You're going to hold them. You're always going to be there for them. And that's never going to change. As long as you're breathing, you're going to be there. I had a beautiful aunt, and I miss her dearly. And there was never anything that I couldn't talk to her about. I miss that. So, Mary, physical impossibility. What did she ask? She simply just said, how great thou art. She simply just said, okay. And then the angel explained the process, that the divine, the God, Holy Spirit, would inseminate her. Didn't ask. That's a cultural thing that is an interesting situation. Then there are societal responsibilities. Societal responsibilities, impossibilities is what I wrote out there. Societal responsibilities, impossibilities. Here we come back to the shepherds. They had societal responsibility. Those sheep were their responsibility. And yet, they had a higher calling. They had a higher calling than their societal responsibilities. They had a higher calling to go see the Messiah. Let me give you a suggestion. When your impossibility faces you, don't shy away from it. Don't run from it. Run towards it. Go through it. Cows run away from a storm. But there's one animal that runs towards it, and that's the mighty buffalo. Because you see, the buffalo knows that by running towards the storm and the storm moving over it, they'll have less time in the storm than the cows will, who are never going to outrun it. Something to consider. Be a buffalo. Notice that the wise men and women didn't face impossibilities. They only took action. It's never stated that the wise men and the wise women in the story, because I believe that there could be wise women that were with the wise men, they probably wouldn't have been recorded, and they probably would have been blotted out at the Council of Nicaea. But I believe that there were. But here's the thing. They didn't face impossibilities. Why? Because every time something came, they just said, okay, this is the path. They were warned in a dream, don't go back by way of Herod. They were warned in a dream about Herod, don't go near him. Don't send him any information. Okay. And they were wise enough that they had already rested in faith. And oh, by the way, there's multiple religions represented in the wise men. But they were wise enough that they had already believed, they'd already trusted, and they let their faith grow, and they kept in their faith. They kept moving forward in their faith. Second reason that the impossible is your second greatest Christmas present. The impossible shines a light on your inner divinity. Whatever impossibility you face, it shines a light on your inner divinity. And let me just say, as a young boy losing my father, it shined a light on something that needed to heal in my inner divinity. I needed to have an identity apart from my dad. You see, I was the preacher's kid. Everybody knew little Bob was the preacher's kid. That was me. That was my identity. That's who I was. But the divine knew better. The divine knew that I was a soul that would help souls. The divine knew that I was a soul that needed to go on a journey. A difficult one. Many would say impossible. with perfect love, all things are possible. All things are possible with perfect love. It shines a light on inner divinity. And I don't want this to sound bad, so it's going to come across bad. But one of my favorite writers brought this up, and I see it so much in this story, so I would be remiss without covering this. It shines a light on an inner divinity, and here's the thing. Women are more in touch with their inner divinity than men. Don't want to be sexist, don't want to separate it, don't want anybody, okay, I get it. But as a general rule, those who are more in touch with their inner divinity have always been the feminine side, have always been the female. It's our feminine side that is more in touch with our inner divinity because they get it. In the process of giving birth, there is in the side of our species that actually gives physical birth, there is the knowledge, the innate knowledge that in that process, there's also a birth that needs to happen within. That new birth, that born again. And in that childbirth and in raising the child, they're just innately connected to that. The men, not so connected. Not so connected. Not so connected. And in fact, the men had to be told by dreams. Even the wise men were told by dreams. Even the wise men were told by dreams. Also, men not so connected to their divinity. And that's why you see the violence of Herod, and you see the threat of the loss of power, the loss of the ego, and the loss of that ego. That's the loss that allows the soul side, the spirit side, the inner divinity to blossom. Reason number 3 why an impossibility is our greatest Christmas present, or one of them. Our impossibilities call us to grow. Our impossibilities call us to look inside and to grow and to see the weeds of our spirit, to see the weeds of our soul and develop the journey. Mary and Joseph, they had to grow to trust. They had to grow in trust for each other. They had to grow in trust for the divine. They had to grow in trust for the plan, everything. They were growing in trust. They had some trust challenges. The wise men grew in patience. They were already patient people. That's why they were wise, but they were growing. There was a growth there for everyone involved. There was a growth. Mary and Joseph, to trust the divine. There was no room. Trust the divine. There's a plan. The divine wanted to show that they were on the lowest rung, that the lowest rung was included in the love, the perfect love that embraced all. That's what the divine wanted to show in the trust that grew there. Through Mary and Joseph, the divine wanted to show that even with cultural disapproval, Joseph and Mary, complete cultural disapproval. That's another good reason to disappear to Egypt. Hey, go to Egypt, they'll accept anybody, right? Not so the Jews, but at any rate. So with that cultural disapproval, one of the things that we see in that cultural disapproval is we see both of them accepting and embracing cultural disapproval because of divine approval. Again, Mary and Joseph both took cultural disapproval because of divine approval. They were taking the journey inside. They were taking the journey inside. And they grew trust in each other. And man, there is nothing greater than when a couple trusts each other and relies on each other and grows together. That's a beautiful thing. The wise men. And how did they grow? Well, there were 3 of them. Why? To encourage each other. The Bible tells us that iron sharpens iron. And it's so true. We need each other to grow. We need each other to move forward. We need to grow together. That's how wise men did it. The wise men, the impossibility called them to grow, to show the reason for our journey. You see, the wise men were going on a journey to see the divine, as are you, and as are me, and as are all of us. Hopefully, we're going on a journey to see the divine that's already within us, that's already right here. The wise men, the impossible calls them to grow, to protect the sacred. They were growing to protect the sacred. What does that mean, to protect the sacred? Well, let's look at this. Herod, protect the sacred. Don't tell him the exact location. Don't share with him any information. You know there is evil in this man's heart, that his ego is still in charge. He hasn't taken that second life journey into spiritualness yet, into spirituality. He never took it that I know of. The Bible doesn't record it, but to protect the sacred of each other. The wise men didn't have a competition about who knew more. There was no wise men competition to see whose religion was right. There was no bickering and battling. They just were on a journey, as are we all. Respect each other's journey. That is so important. They also had to protect love, the sacred love. And that's what they did so well. And that's also why they went home by a different way. They went home by a different way. In a dream, they were told, and they went home a different way. So, I have 2 super important prompts for you, and I will leave them in this, in the link to this. Here's prompt number 1. What is something impossible keeping me from love? Just write this down. What is something impossible keeping me from love? What impossibility is keeping you from love? From truly loving? That's the journey you need to make this holiday season. And the second question, how can I better facilitate my impossible journey? How can I better facilitate my impossible journey? And let's take a look at that. To facilitate your impossible journey, maybe you need to do some inner child work. I strongly suggest some of the classes that are on Insight Timer. They're beautiful classes, wonderful things. How can I better facilitate my impossible journey? By being open about the hurt and the pain that's within you. Going into that place of hurt and that place of pain and being real about that. That's how you can facilitate it. I hope this blessed you. I hope this helps you heal, and I hope this helps your journey. We love you here at Ascension Healing Fellowship. Remember, we're here to help you grow spiritually. This isn't about theology. It's not about doctrinal this or doctrinal that. It's about one word, love. Love, love, love. That's it. Because in the end, that's all there is. Love you guys. We'll chat soon.